Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, listeners, and welcome back. I am so stinking excited to be sharing with you our newest guest, Michele Joy. Oh my goodness, you are in for a treat today. A dynamic powerhouse in her own. Michele is a certified soul coach, a manifestation coach, an international podcaster with the Law of Attraction in Action, and the author of Thrive and Shine, How to Find Happiness When Life Falls Apart. And let me tell you, how timely is that message right now? So this is a lady to watch. She walks the walks, and I am so excited to have her here to shine in her brilliance and to, share, her story with us all. And yes, it's going to be exciting. So welcome, Michele, to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love you, Teri. This is
Oh my goodness.
a shout out to Teri. She's amazing. I'm so glad to be here. Like, I do anything for you. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm just so happy to be
funny?
here.
And this is wild. And this is how small the world it is. So I got connected to Michele through another podcast that I was being interviewed on. And this person's like, you need to reach out to Michele Joy. She's just an amazing being. And you and I just like connected immediately. It's like, you're like a sister from another mother or something.
Right. We're besties. I got off the call. I told my fiance, I'm like, I found a new best friend, honey. She's coming to our wedding. That's it.
I know. I can't wait. But I felt the same way. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this lady is amazing. And just like we were just inside, I fell in love with you. Like, it's just
me
so
too.
amazing.
Me too. I fell in love with you. Yes.
I love it. So
feeling the love already.
So I know we are going to share why people need to fall in love with you today. So I am curious. I'm all about transformation. I'm all about like, how do we get from this point in our life to where we're at today? And for a lot of people, we go through our own path and our own journey, but it's really, I just love hearing about the transformational process. And so how did you come to be where you're at today? So share us a little backstory about you and how you came to be where you're at now.
Yeah, well, it all started in 2009, which is when my ex-husband ended our marriage. And before that, I was massively depressed. I was one of those people who lived in denial land. And I got very comfortable being in denial. I didn't want to pay attention to my life, and I didn't know how bad it was until my marriage ended. And then, I look back, you're like, wow, that was really terrible. And I was treated horribly. And so after I got out of that marriage, I had to really ask myself, like, what did I do to deserve this relationship? But what I really came to is what within me would attract this. Because I started reading a lot of books on personal development. I got obsessed with like, I just want to know me. Like, I remember when I first started meditating, that was kind of my mantra, like, help me see me, help me know my truth, because I had been hiding from myself for so many years. And at the time I was working as a nurse. I loved being a nurse. It was a job that was so satisfying for me. But it also probably helped being around patients all the time who also had been dealt a traumatic event, whether it's chronic illness or cancer or a trauma. And they too had to get to that place of, I just want to get real. So, but I also did not want to live the rest of my life in misery, which is what I had already done. Right. I'm like, okay, been there, done that. What's next? So, after reading about all these books, I finally, I started meditating, which life-changing, by the way. After 3 months, I had a spiritual awakening. where I went from not believing in God to knowing God, like to knowing. I had this moment of like I saw like a slither of light, and within that light was like this amazing love that poured through me. And it was like I was hand delivered what I was supposed to do without me even knowing what it meant. It was kind of like, here's all the information you need. You have everything you need, and here you go. And I'm like, what was that? Like, but I feel it. I feel it, but my brain can't catch up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I was just like this energetic ball. So at that point, Teri, my life was led. I always tell people I was pulled. I don't push. I never push. I just follow the breadcrumbs, and I get curious, and I follow my joy. So then after I had my spiritual awakening in 2011, 2012, I started, became a certified soul coach. And I read this book called The Soul Loves the Truth by Denise Lynn. And I know many of us have that one book that changed us. That was the one book that changed my life. And I said, oh my gosh, I want to be like her. I want to meet her. And coincidentally, she certifies soul coaches. Well, I wasn't looking to become a coach. I loved being a nurse, but I'm like, I have to do this. I'm so called. This is that pull. And it completely changed my life, Teri, because what it teaches you, soul coaching is about, it helps you tap into who you really are. Again, that was my message, my mission was to know who I am. And so, and I kept being led after my soul coaching training. I was told to go out to meetups. That's how you can get your message out. I'm like, this stuff's so good. Like everybody needs to know about soul coaching. And so I signed up with all these meetups, but I was a single mom with 2 kids. I worked 12-hour nights. There's no way I can go to any meetup. I didn't have a babysitter. I didn't have family nearby. And so I just like checked email every once in a great while but signed up for these groups. And then one day I opened up the email from this group called Law of Attraction for Happiness. Never opened an email before. I opened it up and it said, does anyone want to take over facilitating this group? It had 500 members. And I said, yes, I would love to, even though I have no idea how to teach. I've never taught a class in my life. I've never been to the group before. And here I offered to take it over.
Yeah. Do it before you're ready. Right. I just had a conversation earlier today, and it's like, do it before you're ready. But I think the thing, what you're talking about is like, you're saying I'm being called to it. I'm being called to it. Yeah. And I truly believe when we're in alignment, like everything starts to line up. But I think we can have this conversation because we have that awareness and insight. But for a lot of people out there, it's like, well, how do I tap into that? How do I be open to that? Like when does that time happen for me? I mean, can you shed any light onto that like piece of it of like, what were you doing to allow yourself to be open?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest shift for me was meditation. It was that, and really just saying, I want to be happy. Like my intention, when I found Denise Lynn's book, I Googled, books on happiness. Like that's all. I just want to be happy. But I'm one of those people who I get excited and I don't have a pause button, and I don't know why. I think you're the same as me, Teri. This is why we get along so well. We have 0 pause. We get excited. We're like, go. And then we're like, why did I do that? But I think I'm fearless enough to try it. But I also want everyone who's listening to recognize that it does not mean I'm without fear. I'm really not fearless. I'm crazy. But when I do it in spite of the fear, like I'm like, there's some, and maybe this is what you're asking. There's a feeling within you that is so like, what if, why not me? Like, well, what could possibly, what could I do? And now mind you, I'm also working with the dying. I ended up becoming a hospice nurse. And so I was constantly butted up against the end. And because of that, I had the gift of saying, well, I need to live more fully. Like this life will end. So what am I doing playing small? What am I doing? Like listening to those voices that are telling me like, you're not good enough. And why would someone listen to you? And trust me, Teri, I had those, still have those. But I said, you know what? Why not me? Why not? And that's, I think what helps is if you just have that mantra, like, yeah, maybe I'm not the best out there, but why not? Why not me?
Yeah.
I think everybody starts that way. Everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you became a certified coach. And then what was your next step?
Well, then I started teaching the law of attraction, right? So then that became like, whoa, like this is my passion. Like, I got to teach it every other week for 6.5 years. What a gift that was, because every time I had to teach a group, I got to create. That's my creative side. And I love creating groups. But in order to create groups, I had to learn as well what we teach, what we need to learn. So I was constantly learning about law of attraction. And it was like, I'm one of those people, and you probably are too, but when you're into something, like you become obsessed. Like, this is my passion and purpose, because like I will talk about personal development until I'm dead exhausted. I'll probably talk about it in my sleep. Like, I love personal development. I love law of attraction. So, but then after I was teaching that group for 6.5 years, I kept going, well, why not me? So then, I got a lot of feedback from people like, Michelle, you're really great at what you do. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. So that helped, because my self-esteem started like, oh, maybe I'm pretty good at this. And I was blogging all the time, and I ended up, because I love to write, I'm like, well, why not write a book? Like, Teri, you have no idea how I never thought of myself as a writer. And here I am, I wrote a book. I'm an author, so I don't think anything that I've done in my life has been, it's been courageous, but it's definitely been like, can I really do this? That doubt was always there.
Yeah.
But I just said, again, working with the dying was a gift, because I said, well, I'm going to die anyway. So, and I also believe we're infinite beings. So I believe, well, I'll have more fun in a different life. So, but why not take advantage of this life? And I was given the gift. I think it's another thing. I know I'm rambling on too much, but the one thing that you have to recognize what your gifts are and then see where they take you. And I started to see my gifts because I took action, and I didn't know I was a great speaker. I didn't know that I, could write until I tried.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
thank
that's
God I tried. Yeah.
And I think sometimes we stop ourselves, whether that's the noise in our brain, that's the conditioning, the programming that we've had. We stop ourselves before we even give it a chance, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to someone today, and I talked about we're here to be expansive, and she asked me a question, and I said, you know what, there's most things I'm doing in my life, including this, right? Including this. Like, I'm scared, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it anyways. I might be peeing my pants, but no one else will know, hopefully.
Yeah.
It's just, but you're right. You're taking action. So how did you overcome that inner critic that was constantly at you and doubting you, right? I mean, it sounds like just based on what you were experiencing in your nursing world, like that was kind of like a powerful insight. It's like, life's precious.
Yeah. I think it took time. And when I say it took time, after doing my meetup that I taught for 6.5 years, I gained more confidence because I kept doing it, right? Like any athlete, they get better because they practice. So I think that was helpful for me. I started my podcast so I started in 2018. I've been a coach since 2012. So it took me that long, plus I was doing my meetup, and then I stopped doing that. And then I thought, well, I have enough confidence. Well, I have a lot to share. I'm going to do a podcast. Now, I knew nothing about podcasting, right? I had no trick. I didn't even do any research. Someone said, do this site. And I said, okay. And I started, and I didn't even have a mic. I didn't know anything, and I've learned everything as I went, but, I don't know where I was going with any of this, but, yes.
But you took action. You took action. You took imperfect action. You stepped out of your comfort zone, and you just did it. You said, I'm doing this.
Right. And I think what drives me when I had that spiritual awakening, and that's part of why I bring that up a lot to people, is when you know who you really are. And a spiritual awakening is knowing who you really are. And what happened to me is I connected into that powerful being within me. I mean, we all are that. We all are that. So I feel lucky that I connected with that, because that's what drives me actually 99% of the time. Is I know that being within me is more powerful than any energy out there on this planet, because I know I'm not alone. I know that the divine is feeding me inspiration. I know it's not of me. Like when I teach, I'm like, ooh, who was that? Or I'll read my book, and I'm like, that's pretty good. Who wrote that? Because I don't feel like it's me, but that's my ego. I because of my spiritual awakening, and when I practice and I meditate, I'm not perfect, but when I connect with that inner being within me, I am more fearless. And because I know I'm guided, I know this is my path. And I
Yeah.
also believe, Teri, for everyone who's listening, please listen to me. If there's something within you that excites you, it is meant to manifest. And that keeps me going too. Because there's been many times that I've had doubt where I gave up on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That
You
gives
know?
me chills because you're right. It's those, if we just stop a moment and just listen, right? I always tell people, like, go deep within.
Yeah.
And what is that knowing that you know with all certainty that you are supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
I think
Right.
I'm in a similar position. Like, I never in a million years thought I'd be speaking. If you would have asked me 21 years ago if I'd be standing on a stage, I would have laughed, right?
Yeah.
Because it was the most ridiculous thought ever. And here I am, right? And it's like I know, just like this deeper knowing, but it wasn't until like all these different things that happened that was like brought you onto your path, right? And so that being in alignment, and just it it really does, as much as we want to control, it really does when we just pause
Mm-hmm.
and we allow, it can be such a game changer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're right,
Yeah.
like tapping
Yeah.
into that calling and that knowing, instead of the resistance and the, anything else that we're telling ourselves. It's powerful.
Yeah. Can I tell you what happens when you don't listen though? Because
Oh,
because this will be helpful, I think, because there's times I did not listen. And for instance, I gave up on myself when I was teaching the group for a long time, and I quit doing it, and I started having self-doubt. It's an upper limiting thing. I just
yeah,
like, I went way above my head, and I'm like, and all the fears and doubt came in. I was working full time as a hospice nurse doing home health, and it was exhausting. I came home from work like exhausted. It was one of the hardest jobs I ever had. It was very emotionally and draining. And I just gave up. And what happened is my back went out. I've never had a back problem. As a nurse, that's the thing. You always hear about nurses hurting their backs because we're turning patients. I was working in the nurse in the hospital for 12 years and working with total care patients, and I never once hurt my back. And you know how I hurt my back? I was sweeping my house. So it has nothing to do with sweeping, though. It's because I gave up on me. And so what I hear stories from people on my podcast, but also in my own life, when I gave up on me, my body told me. My
yeah,
body's like, what are you doing, Michelle? Why are you holding back? Why are you
yeah,
holding back? And so when I said, okay, you're right, I hear you, I started to get back into it. My back pain immediately went away. And this is after doing a chiropractor and acupuncturist. None of that worked. But the second I said, okay, I'm not giving up on my dream, my
yeah.
back pain went away instantly.
It's absolutely brilliant how mind, body, spirit are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I have a struggle, anytime, I have clients that come to me with a struggle, I'm like, okay, what, in their body, like, okay,
Yeah.
what is this trying to tell us? Like,
Right.
what is this body part trying to tell us? And then it's amazing how we can go from the kind of metaphysical piece of it and look at it
Right.
in a whole different light. And it's like, oh, and it's like boom, boom, boom. It's
Yeah.
powerful when we can see the messages, because our body is listening to us, and it is here. It's our container.
Yeah.
However, it is experiencing life right along with us. And it's a powerful indicator when we stop listening, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of like the if the universe always is whispering to us, and if we're not listening, then it starts to yell at us. And if we're not
Yes.
listening, then we get the 2x4. And then if we don't get the 2x4, something else really bad happens,
Right.
until we take notice of what's
Right.
happening. And a lot of times it shows up physically,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a physical piece, and sometimes it's worse. It's a medical
Right.
condition.
And again, every person I interview in my podcast, I have story after story after story of people sharing how they had that cosmic 2x4, whether it was a car accident, or it was like severe back pain, or it was cancer. All of these people have healed themselves and have started to live life fully. And it's just like, this stuff is amazing. That's why I love teaching it.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge or biggest barrier that you've had to overcome in this journey for yourself?
I still think it's the self-doubt. It still comes up for me all the time. It's that, and also that scarcity mindset. And it's not just with money. Scarcity mindset, I believe, is it's like that black fog that comes into your mind. It says, there's not enough, there's too many coaches out there. There's, too many books out there. And it's like, I know in my heart and in my spirit that we're an infinite universe, and yet my ego still is really tricky and convincing me otherwise. So I think that's something I think all of us are working on, I just listening to a Wayne Dyer video that he recorded in 95. And he talks about the ego, and ego, as he says, is edge God out, ego, edge God out. And because the ego it wants to be in control. It does not want to die. And spirit is the opposite of ego. Spirit is like letting go. And so I think the time I gave up on myself and like all these great ideas that I have, sometimes I don't follow through because I start to doubt myself. Yeah. And so I think that's the hardest thing. Sometimes I get past it, and sometimes it overwhelms me. And I think it's that scarcity mindset, again, not just money, but like, there's too much. There's all this competition. Oh no, they're not going to listen to me. And that holds us back. Because when I step away from that and I do my thing, and then now I have over 100,000 people listen to my podcast, there's a lot of people in this world. Why am I thinking no one's liking me? It's just an ego thing.
Yeah, it is. And the power of the brain, right? So, I mean, when we start going down that line of self-doubt, I mean, we're engaging the brain and we're finding the evidence to support that story. And we can make it as a snowball effect that happens with our brain. And so, at some point we have to look at, okay, we have to be able to stop this, right?
Right.
Because we're powerful creators and manifestors, but we're also, either way, a positive, or we can be in a negative place and space of creating that same, challenges and difficulties and struggles along with that. Because I just truly believe that we are very powerful and potent beings.
Yes.
We're only as powerful as we allow ourselves to be. Right. So,
yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So what's next for you? What's your next place and space that you're creating for you?
I love that you asked this question, because I'm going to give you an answer that most people won't expect. I don't plan. I'm the opposite of planning. I want the universe to show me whatever direction it wants me to go. My only goal is to keep surrendering. Surrender. I want to come into full spirit. Like, that is my mission. And what happens is every time I share something, it's just because I get excited. It's not that I have a goal to do things. I do have a lot, coming up. Like, I'm doing a manifest, a miracle mindset coaching certification program, and a miracle mindset business mastery. So I do have things that I'm working on right now. But to me, my biggest heartfelt place to be is to surrender and see what happens, but that's creating beautiful. I believe is part of that divine, it is the divine energy. And so I created these programs, but we'll see what happens. Like, I'm unattached to them in many ways. It was just this great idea. Like, how could I serve people? I'm always asking every day, how can I serve people? How can I be of service? How could I help more people? And I have such a huge following with my podcast. I'm like, well, this is a way to serve them. Then they can serve people, right? I want more people to serve more people, because that's, I think, if all of us wake up, Teri, what an amazing world that would be. So that, maybe that is my long-term vision, is wake up the world, but I don't know how. And I'm not going to get in the way of the how. I want to just open surrender. And because I'm a yes woman and I'm okay with taking immediate action, I have no doubt when I get in that space, right?
Yeah, I love it. And that's a great way of answering that question, right? Is like, I'm going to be guided to the next place, because oftentimes I'll talk about having targets, and I'll have a target, but as you know, as a target, there's multiple rings around it, right? So I'm heading in that direction, and but allowing that space and place for miracles to happen. And so we're not getting so laser focused on this has to be this way. And I think you said it so beautifully, and you just said, letting go of the how. And I think that's a constant practice I'm learning, in my own path. And I think a lot of listeners that are listening is like, how do we let go of that? Because I think that letting go process is just like a lifelong lesson.
Yeah.
Of, because we can have it and then we lose it, and then we can have it again and we lose it. And it's like, okay, yes, okay, yes, okay, let go. There's a great saying, let go and let God. But it's like, okay, how, like, like sometimes it's scary to let go, because that let go, that the ego, it wants to, we're battling with the ego, and that sense of needing to control, and just this that false reality of like that we have control.
Right. No, absolutely. I did 2 video series, which I did 365 days of joy, and then I did 365 days of miracle moments with 5 days between, which is crazy. But the greatest gift of those videos for me, it wasn't about the video, it was about how my life changed by making this a daily practice. And by doing the video, it's like I have an accountability partner. It's like, all right, I have to find my miracle today, even though I don't feel like it. And every day, Teri, a miracle came every day. And
like, this gives me goosebumps. Okay. Just gives me goosebumps.
I know, but like now I have more, I'm more courageous. I'm more of a believer than ever, because I made that commitment to myself. So I encourage people to make a commitment to their joy or to seeing miracles. I had the affirmation again from Wayne Dyer: I expect miracles every day. And I start out every morning with that.
And if you have that expectation, it is universal law. It will happen. It is not a matter of if or when. It will, right? And it's just, I love that, having that commitment of, doing this every day. And I think sometimes we get lost in that, especially when we start talking about law of attraction, and I'm sure that you've come across this too, is, there's a lot of people that says, oh yes, I have my vision boards, and I do that once a year, right? And then they kind of like leave it and forget it. I don't know if you've come across people like that, but if I've spoke to, like, oh yeah, law of attraction. Oh yeah, I have my vision board. And I was like, well, it's more than that. Like, what are you doing daily? Incorporating a daily practice of creating that which you desire, right? And it takes focus, because there's so many times that we're in this place and space and we can get wrapped up into the negative, and then we start focusing on that piece. So it takes daily practice, like you said, of getting into that positive mindset, maintaining that positive mindset, finding the evidence, finding the miracles, and just really, being in alignment with it all.
Right. And then it's fun. It's fun. Like,
it's so much fun. It's fun. You're right. You just kind of getting. And your personality is very similar to mine. I think that's why we connected.
Yes,
so well.
Totally.
But I think, and you said that you didn't have a pause button. I'm like, I'm the same way. We don't have a pause button.
No pause button.
I think the more you are in that place and space of anything can happen. Like, literally, I was on just a high today because I just got some really cool, exciting information that I'm like, that I just helped create that. Like, this is exciting. But it becomes giddy, and it's so infectious. People are like, oh, I love, right? And your energy is so expansive and radiant that people just want to be around you, because you're like,
absolutely,
you're just a yummy person. Like, right? Like, because you are so in touch with what brings you joy.
Right. And I encourage everyone to follow their joy. And that's been my big message, is to have people follow their joy, because we don't realize that the joy is what leads us to where we're supposed to be. It's the joy that helps attract to us all that we are wanting, and then some. And it's the joy that is truly enjoying the journey. Because again, when we die, what I hate for people to say is when they're on their deathbed, like, wow, I really didn't live fully. I didn't live life like I wish I did. Can I get a do-over? Right? Why? We don't want to get to that point. And so, one of the most powerful guests I had, besides you, of course, Teri, she had cervical cancer, and she was told and she's like early 30s. They said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. You basically have a month to live. So get your affairs in order. And this is all we can do. And she goes, no, I don't think so. So she said, well, in her mind at first, she's like, well, if I only have a month to live, I better live full out. 5 years later, Teri, she's still here. And she's such an inspiration, because really, she said what made her live is she lived. She said, no more. I am living my life fully. And she healed herself. So it is so important that we live And this is the message you and I both have. People need to
Yeah.
live, right?
Yeah, embrace it. I mean, we do, that there is, it's a little, cheesy, but that, you only have one life to live. It's like, yeah, but it's the reality, right? Like, what are we going to
Mhm.
do? How are we going to make the most of this, this
Right.
life?
And that's why why not? And it's funny because my
Yeah,
niece I
why
talked to
not?
recently and she listens to my podcast. She goes, and she started her own business. And she goes, the reason I started my business because I was listening to your podcast and I read your book and you said the one about why not really shifted me. I'm like, that was really good. I always think about, I want to write a book about why not me? Because
Yeah,
it makes you go like, why, what makes that person better than me? Why
exactly.
can't I do? I don't know. Those words in itself make me feel fearless. Why not?
Yeah, I love it. Why not? Why not?
I know, right? And
Right?
I also want to say, like, none of us are like, it's like for you and I, it's imperfect action, but we take action. But
Yeah.
it's never perfect. If you listen to my first podcast, they're terrible. You're doing a lot more prepping than I ever did. I had no guidance. You're really smart. Well, smart. We're different. Um, Mine's worked out. So, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
think
But also you've been uber successful, but I think sometimes, you know, we can follow that blueprint and that works for some people, but some other people, you created your own path and you've shown you've become uber
yeah,
successful with
well,
that.
it's
So I
worked.
think
So thank you,
it's
God.
it's like how, like, yeah, each of us are different and each of our paths are different
Right.
and like there's no
Absolutely.
judgment of it. It's like what works for you, right?
Oh
So I
my
love
gosh.
it.
I cannot say that louder. What works for you is what you need to
Yeah,
do. But don't
exactly.
hold yourself back because you're like, well, it needs to look perfect. Like, it'll never be perfect. You'll never get it out there. And all those people need to hear your message, right?
Yeah, I love it. So all of you that are listening right now, what is it, that message that, or what is that knowing that you have inside of yourself that knows, oh, right? And just ask the
Yeah.
question, why not me? Right? Like,
Yeah.
why not me?
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been so delightful. I could literally talk to you forever.
I
So
know.
what is one little tip, strategy, takeaway that you can share with our listeners to say, if I take nothing away from this conversation today, if I do this, my life will be better
Mhm.
tomorrow?
Follow your joy.
I,
That's it. Just so simple.
mm,
Follow your joy. Ask yourself every morning you wake up. I'm also a certified happiness coach, so I speak from some experience. But when you wake up in the morning, you say, what does joy ask of me? And then do it. And I think so many of us need to play more. As adults, especially, I used to teach groups and I'd have them, I take out hula hoops. We do hula hooping. One time we did a Nerf gun war. These are all adults. And every single one of them thanked me profuse. They're like, Michele, that was the best class ever, because we don't give ourselves permission to play. So my biggest advice is go have fun, go play. You don't realize how important that play is for you,
yeah.
because that is what opens your heart. That's where the divine inspiration then flows into your, all of a sudden, bam, you get this brilliant idea that will change your life.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is the joy that leads you there. So follow your
It's
joy.
the gateway. It's the
It's the
gateway. It's the
gateway,
gateway to opening it
right?
up. It is this, it allowance of, I mean, that becomes that like kid-like playing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because when I'm probably the biggest goofball, that many people,
Again, this is
and
why we bond so
again,
well.
right? And so it's so funny because like my friends, will often say, oh, Teri's just being Teri. And over time, I thought I took offense to it at first. I did, because I was like, well, that's kind of really rude. Like, I think they're kind of like saying there's something wrong with me. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? That is probably the greatest thing that they can actually say,
Yeah.
because they just gave me permission. Not that I needed it, but they gave me permission, right? And it's like, they in a very endearing way, they're just like, you know what, Teri's going to do Teri, and you know what, that's just, I mean, what else can we say? I think that at this point throwing their hands up and like, I don't know, like what else? But I think it's just that element, that place and space of like, I'm being me, I'm doing me.
Yeah.
And now I have people just like, oh, giving me permission.
And
Teri's
Teri, this is one of the reasons that I fell in love with you, but besides like talking to you on my podcast, but when I saw a video of you, you're doing a Facebook Live with yourself on a longboard, dressed up in like business
dressed
attire.
up. I didn't
And
want
you
to
were on
change.
your longboard going down a hill, probably in your mind going, oh crap, like this is kind of a big hill. And you're on your selfie stick giving a lesson. And
I
I'm like,
know.
this woman is my people. Like, you are my people. So yes, we are.
Yes. Yes. And that hill I'd only done twice. And that was my second time doing it. And I was like, well, I did it the first time pretty flawless. I should be able to do it with, I did have flats on because I did change.
Right. You weren't in heels, right?
I wasn't going to do it in heels. I'm like,
Right.
let's just push my limits to this level. But it was, and it is fun to like, in some ways I feel like that's kind of rule breaking, right? Breaking
I'm
out.
a big rule breaker. I love rule breaking.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I there are some rules that are meant to be there, but I think I break I should say some rules. I'm just kidding. They can't see my facial expressions.
We'll talk about it off the air, what rules we really have broken, but yes. But I think, those of us who actually are thinking outside the box are rule breakers because we don't have a box.
Yeah.
The box is too containing and we don't need that box.
And we're too expansive. We're too in the place and space of like, what can we create, right? So why not me? Let's create, right?
Right.
So,
and follow your joy. Right.
This has been absolutely delightful. So how did people find you?
The best way is go to my website at michele-joy.com. That's MICHELE-JOY.com. And on there, I have all the information about my upcoming certification program and my other courses, and also for my podcast and my book and my joy and miracle videos as well. Everything's on my website. So that's probably the best way to find me. And of course, link to me with social media. I love to connect. I love messages. And definitely check out my podcast, Law of Attraction in Action.
It is fantastic. So go check out her website, go connect in any way, in shape and form that works for you. And thank you so much, Michele. Until next time.
Thank you.
Have an amazing time. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.